antlers, assumptions, and artillery. You wanted to see me? Jacob asks as he enters Admiral Crosswind's office. Yes, your training is off to a good start, but I've been told that there's a slight issue with things, she says, and he raises an eyebrow. With what? With your own mental and emotional health. I'm training super soldiers here. Hilariously or effective, but crazy as expected. Unstable is a problem, though, as is someone who might be unwilling to work with some people due to a misplaced feeling of guilt, Admiral Crosswind says, and he freezes. She taps a spot on her desk and it lights up to project an image of a world, Halrin 14, a system with numerous tiny planets around a single red star. The largest and furthest of these planets is the birthplace of the Valrin people. From my own understanding, there was nearly 20 other mini-planets around the orbit of Halrin before it aged into a red star several million years ago, give or take a few millennium. What does this have to... Jacob begins to ask, and Admiral Crosswind holds up a hand to silence him. On Halrin, which in the language of the natives is loosely translated to Great Nest, natives were found, at first. You see, the native people, self-titled the Valrin, or loosely translated the Great People, were tribal at the time, the most advanced of their societies having recently started to work bronze. Those were the Stonebreakers, by the way. They were also aggressive with each other, and the tribe that first contact was made with was the most aggressive by multiple light years. The Shryktalon? Jacob asks in shock, and Admiral Crosswind nods. A pacifistic society doesn't just spring out of the ether. They have a reason for acting the way they do, and the tribal Shryktalons were so unreasonably aggressive, so unrelentingly violent, and so unimaginably cruel that the Valrin species as a whole was nearly quarantined instead of uplifted. The tribe used to believe that the great creator spirit was a bloodthirsty one, and every cruelty they visited upon others was a cruelty spared from their own people, literally trying to torture and murder the galaxy into submission. What the fuck? Needless to say, the more reasonable tribes of Stonebreaker, Redfeather, Sea Diver, Fearsong, and Many Caves were uplifted first, and no amount of ferocity supported by flint weapons and crude blood magics can stand against power armor and plasma cannons. Jacob is stunned silent. Your ancestors were pummeled into submission, and to survive, they swore an oath of unending nonviolence, one they have kept for nearly 30,000 years. She finishes, and he just stares at her. So in conclusion, you're not some freak of nature among the Shryktalon. You're not some unknown or unknowable monster. You are a man who was pushed past all reasonable limits and who was still measured in his response. You still have a people to return to, and any that would cast you out as a fool that has failed to learn from their history, because the first Shryktalon pacifists were far worse on their most peaceful day than you are on your most violent. Jacob just stares at her for a minute. Then he slowly stands up and walks out. Get back here, Admiral Crosswind says, and he dumbly walks back in. I know this is a shock, so I'm assigning you a buddy to take you to the Shryktalon Enclave so you can confirm it for yourself. All right? He just sort of vaguely nods and sits back down to wait for his escort. By the time Corporal Bladeborn arrives, Jacob is over his shock and deep in thought. Admiral, ma'am? Ah, there you are, Corporal. Captain Shryktalon here is utterly out of touch with his heritage and has never been to the local Shryktalon Enclave. You are to be his backup to and from, Admiral Crosswind says, and she receives a salute. Jacob rises up and offers a salute in farewell to the Admiral before following Corporal Bladeborn out. So you're a captain? Are you one of the ones that showed up with their own ship? I don't think any non-human's been through enough training to have a ship assigned to them yet, Bladeborn asks. Pretty much. The Bloody Heron is mine, and if I chose not to renew my contract with the Undaunted, it'll stay mine, including upgrades, which is just another amazing bonus. It's how they get a lot of captains to sign up. Not only do you get steady work and a respectable rank, but the maintenance and upgrading of your ships getting completely covered is just too much for a lot of galactic flyboys and girls to resist, Bladeborn says. That how they got you in? No, I had other reasons. Sorry, there's a lot on my mind right now, mostly about a lot of missed chances. Jacob says. About what? What do you know about the Shryktalons? Only enough to know it's weird to have one in a military. But one of the first things I was taught about the galaxy is that it's so big that if I say always or impossible, I'm just going to be wrong. So it's weird, but a Shrik-Talon soldier is possible. Bladeborn says with a shrug as they both get into the airvan they had been walking towards during their entire conversation. Well, apparently when I lost all track with my own people, I made a few assumptions that has pulled me away from my... Anyways, this is something overdue anyways. The whole Undaunted creed can be summarized as challenge accepted, and I have not been living up to that. Jacob says, and Bladeborn nods. Cutting yourself off from what you used to be can't be easy. The Horchka man says sympathetically. I might not have to, but I need to know for sure. Jacob says as they zip past arcology after arcology. Some are towers, other are domes or pyramids. All of them are massively reinforced and potent structures with their own cultures and aesthetics. From neon lights to decorative paint to intricate sculptures, and more than a few incorporate all three. Then the Shrik-Talon enclave comes into view, decorated to look like a massive glacier in the snowstorm, but with plenty of bright blue warning lights all over it. It looks more like a roughly dome-shaped art piece than a place where people live from a distance. Synthetic panes of crystal, mostly diamonds and sapphires, serve as windows as they descend slowly through an atmosphere shield and come to a stop. So do you know where to go? Bladeborn asks, and Jacob laughs. Yes, because the knowledge of each and every community where Shrik-Talons are born is tattooed onto our genetic sequence in a way that survives healing comas, even with deliberately sabotaged retention bands. I can navigate my way blindfolded. Jacob's sarcastic ability is in fine form. Bladeborn only chuckles at the barrage of sarcasm. Okay, I get it. Oh, do you? That's great, Jacob says in the same tone. You can stop now. No, I can't. I'm so nervous I'm stuck like this. Oh, help me, Corporal. I think I need medical... Jacob begins to exclaim before dodging a swipe from the Orchka. Too slow. Got you to stop, though. I suppose? Jacob concedes. But honestly, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm so out of touch I don't know who to talk to, or even figure out how to learn who to talk to. Then ask. What are you afraid of? That people vaguely related to you will just throw you out if you say the wrong thing? Bladeborn demands, and Jacob sighs in shame before nodding a little. Oh, but this is a bandage I need to rip off. If this infected old wound is to ever heal, I need to drain the pus. Jacob says, standing up completely straight and walking towards the nearest Valryn, even as Bladeborn mutters about him mixing his metaphors. Jacob walks up to a nearby Valryn who's working at a console and basically doing one of the filler jobs of double-checking what an algorithm is already doing. The sort of busy work that needs to be done but is so boring and simple that it can almost be done in your sleep. But sleeping is about the only thing you can do to mess up in the job. Excuse me, Jacob says, and the inattentive and bored woman nearly jumps off her seat and looks around, shocked that anyone is actually talking to her. Yes, what's going on? She asks before blinking, and her eyebrows go up at the full sight of Jacob with Bladeborn behind him. All right, this is going to sound really weird and... Jacob begins, and the woman looks at him, visibly looks him over quickly, then looks over him again with particular attention to his crotch, and then smiles. Is this about to become a porno? Because I am ready, she says, and Jacob smacks his forehead with a wing as Bladeborn starts visibly choking down a laugh. Never mind, I'll talk to someone whose brain isn't in their crotch, Jacob says, turning away and walking off. Ah, ha ha, ouch, dude, brutal, Bladeborn exclaims as he follows him out, and the Valryn woman fully comes to alert and then buries her face in her wings in shame. Before she can say anything, both men have left the room, and she sighs before leaning forwards and resting her head on the screen. I hate this job. No patience for being hit on like that? Bladeborn asks after the door closes behind them. Let's just say I've got issues in history that she just poked in the worst way. Jacob answers. If you says so. Still, seem kinda mean. Maybe, but considering that my talons twitch from a desire to strike out, I'd say I was pretty gentle. Jacob answers. Do you have a problem with your own species? Bladeborn asks. Let's just say that I've had a lot of memory outright deleted, and I found out what happened before one of those deletions. To my eternal regret, Jacob says as his talons clench ever so and go from tapping the floor beneath them to outright scratching them, as axiom flows subconsciously to ready him for murder. He stops and takes a few deep breaths to steady himself and stop the axiom flow. That bad? Bladeborn asks. Probably worse than you're thinking. I had time to brace myself and knew intellectually that something like that probably existed. But knowing something up here doesn't stop it from feeling like a gut shot. Jacob answers, tapping his head. Wait. I want to apologize, the monitor woman says, rushing through the hallway behind them. I'm sorry, I get into fugue states when I'm on the job and stop actually thinking. I am so sorry. Jacob says nothing for a moment before suddenly nodding firmly. Right, well then maybe you can help me, ma'am, he says, and she nods. I have lost all touch with my heritage. I may have red feather plumage, but I'm a Shrekadalon, but I don't know what it means to be Shrekadalon anymore. My memories were completely destroyed in deliberately botched healing comas. I was abused until I lashed out and became a killer, a warrior, and now a soldier. I need to know, I need to speak with some kind of elder or wise woman or someone with the moral authority to tell me if I'm still a Shrekadalon by anything other than blood. This is way out of my expertise, she says slowly as she clearly looks over Jacob again, this time in a completely non-sexual manner. Her eyes flicker to where his weapons are hidden and she takes a step back. Then who does have the expertise? Jacob asks. I just need to know. There isn't anyone. We're not some kind of spiritual center or tribe here. We're just people. We live a certain way and that's it, she says, and he sighs. But what happened? I fell into debt and was conned. They then deliberately fucked the healing coma. They forced me into to effectively murder me and had me as a product in a little boy fuckhouse. One where they kept forcibly deleting my memories to make sure that someone new could take my innocence all over again. By sheer fucking luck, I broke out. Then I went back to try and stop it, Jacob says, and she just stares at him in horror. There isn't anyone, or really anything that I can point you to. We're a people, a way of life, not some creed. We're just peaceful, she says. I'm sorry. So there's really no one that can actually talk me through the history and philosophy of the Shrekadalons? That seems kind of weird. If you're just looking for history, then there's the university in the northern part of the arcology. But whether the historians there are authorities on Shrekadalon philosophy, or whether or not someone is a Shrekadalon, I have no idea, she admits. Better than nothing. Thank you, miss, Jacob says as he starts to move again. Then he pauses and looks back with a smirk. And in the future, don't immediately jump to porn when a guy starts talking to you. It's a little too strong as a come-on.